Hello. Welcome to the Total Truth Show, episode 22. My name is Aldwyn, Altuney from the Gold Coast in Australia.
And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the United States of America in San Diego County, California.
And I'm Andrew Carter from Brisbane, Australia.
And we'll be right back after this short introduction.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show, hosted by myself, Ken Kleinberg from San Diego County, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
And our goal here on this show is to help you to break away from the mainstream media propaganda and lies, the disinformation and misinformation that's out there in the mainstream, and really help you to start questioning everything and start doing the research for yourself. We want to punch through all of that disinformation and misinformation. Our goal here is to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass and then pave the way for a new awakened civilization. And we would love for you to come along for the ride. Don't take our word for it. The things that we share here on the show, that goes for our guests too. Start doing the research for yourself. Start going and asking the questions for yourself. Get out there and really find the real truth behind things. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Yes, welcome to the Total Truth Show. So excited to be with you today. We're going to be chatting about the truth about profitable publishing. We have the CEO of Global Publishing Group with us, the amazing Andrew Carter. And just a little bit about Andrew. He's a professional pilot, an entrepreneur, author, business mentor, philanthropist, public speaker, and CEO of the award-winning Global Publishing Group. He's run 3 highly successful businesses and founded 2 not-for-profit organizations. He's a respected business leader, acknowledged for his strategic and marketing intellect, and is a recognized authority on aviation, leadership, decision-making, and business turnaround. Welcome, Andrew. Great to have you.
Thanks for having us on.
And of course, my amazing co-host, Ken, all the way from San Diego. How are you feeling today, Ken?
Feeling excellent.
Fantastic. Well, I love this topic. For anyone out there who is a budding author or who is an existing author, you're going to absolutely love this show today. And particularly if you are in business or you're an entrepreneur, we're going to be chatting more about the how-to books today, but also giving you some information about ebooks and the difference between ebooks and physical books and why you may want to consider doing a physical book. So, Andrew, if we start with your background, now, how did you go from being a pilot to being involved in this business?
Well, that's a great question, Alwyn. As you're probably aware, aviation in Australia isn't the most stable of backgrounds. You've ever heard of a company called Ansett, for example? Look at the trouble Virgin's been through just recently. So, look, there's been a lot of airlines collapse over the last 20 years or so in Australia. And having been through all of that, I'm glad I got to do it. I'm glad I've had that experience. It's been interesting being a captain for national and international carriers, and I've got to see a lot of the world and do a lot of the things I wanted to do. And I'm grateful to have done it. But by the same token, once you've done it, it all becomes much of muchness, I suppose. International flying or any sort of airline flying is fairly boring. And it has to be. That's the way the passengers want it. So for those of us looking for more of a challenge or wanting to do something else, in my case, I've always had that entrepreneurial itch that needed to be scratched. I'm sure many of your viewers can, align with that. So went off and did that in between breaks in flying and did very well out of it as a result and grew my business, retired at age 37 when I sold that business off. And then sort of fell into consulting. People were approaching me wanting to know how can I help them with business. And so I ended up writing a book actually to cover all of the basic points, everything that every business can do to improve their business dramatically. And that got out there and I became quite successful as a result of that. And people came to me wanting one-on-one coaching or to help them with their business. and things sort of grew from there. And it just so happens that the company I published with was an entrepreneurial publisher, the first entrepreneurial publisher in Australia. And so I went through the process, helped them develop that, and then the opportunities come up to purchase the company. And I liked the product so much, I bought the company, as Victor Clem used to say. So, yeah, very happy to be here, very happy to be doing it. And we get to help so many people as a result. I'm just one person. I can't change the world, but I'm working with people who are writing books that are helping thousands of people. So I only have to help dozens of them, and they go on and help tens, even hundreds of thousands of people through association. So it's an exciting time and really happy to be doing it.
Brilliant. And there is nothing quite like having a physical book in your hand, I must say. Now, I am a co-author in about 16 compilation books now, and I'm working on my own full book now. And that's another thing. These compilation books seem to be coming out of the woodwork as well. There's a whole lot of people collaborating with others and doing compilation books, which is fantastic for exponential networking. However, really, when it comes to building influence and authority, there's nothing quite like having your own book. Would you say, Andrew?
Yes and no. I agree 100%. But before you go dismissing compilation books, believe it or not, that is how a lot of people establish their authority. So how the entrepreneurial publishing got started in Australia is because we had a guy who was introducing a franchise to Australia that wasn't known at all. And he himself wasn't known at all. So he went and interviewed 13 other top franchise CEOs and produced a book called Top Franchise CEOs. He placed himself and his business in that. And so when people are reading it, they're looking, okay, well, I know all of these established brands. I haven't heard of him or his brand, but if he's in this book with all of these well-known brands, he too must be a credible brand. So it can build credibility and authority through a compilation book if it's done correctly. It's an easy way to complete a book because you're obviously getting a lot of other people to contribute and make all the content for you. You normally would only have to do one chapter yourself, in some cases only the introduction, and it is a great way to get started to dabble your foot in the water, I suppose. But there's a lot to be said for not only for writing your own book, but having your face on that book, which really establishes your brand, your credibility, your authority, and ultimately that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And a difference between having a chapter in someone else's compilation book and actually creating the compilation book yourself under topics such as franchising or media or health or whatever your specialty is. Like if I was to do a book and interview a whole lot of media experts, well, that's different to being in someone's book about, femininity, for example. Like here's actually 3 books I was in on this is 3 books I've got a chapter in, and this was done by Shah Moore. And this is the Feminescence series, right? So that's 3 that I have a chapter in. However, and it does all promote my media business, coming from a more feminine stance. However, if I was to do my own compilation book, that would absolutely build a lot more authority in the field. And as you say, doing it properly, Andrew, is the big thing. So what are some mistakes that people make when it comes to maybe doing compilation books or even getting started as an author?
Well, let's just go back a step first and touch on what you were talking about then. The whole point is, the 2 hardest things in business today, and not just in business, I mean, even if you're an online business or an online influencer, the hardest thing is to gain attention. There is so many people out there all vying for the same space, all vying for attention, online or offline, it doesn't matter. So gaining attention becomes the single hardest thing any of us can do, right? Then when you do gain a prospect's attention, then what happens? Well, people are reluctant to deal with you because of a lack of trust. All right, that's the single biggest barrier to people dealing with with businesses these days. So a book is brilliant at doing 2 things. 1, it gains attention. That's the hardest part done for you. And 2, it builds trust and credibility because, Aldwyn, when you were talking about writing it yourself, when I sit down and read your words, I'm connecting with you. I'm connecting with your personality, your thoughts and feelings, and that's what builds that trust. It builds a bond, a connection between the reader and the author. So you've gained attention and you've built trust better than any other marketing tool out there, and you've now positioned yourself as an authority and as an expert that people want more from. People are now going to ask you, what else have you got to provide? And you can't do that through any other medium. And I'm talking about non-fiction books here specifically, and non-fiction is very important because fiction is a form of entertainment. So you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with the cinema, you're competing with video games, you're competing with the beach, you're competing with everything. But how-to books in particular, non-fiction how-to books are just so popular. You think about it, 40% of searches into YouTube start with how-to. People are searching for information. People want this information, and book is a great way to do it. You don't have the same distractions you have if you're on a screen. If you're reading an ebook or something like that, and you've got you've got YouTube open, you've got Facebook open, you've got your emails open. When you've got a physical book, people are dealing just purely with you, undistracted, and you've got their attention one-on-one to build that trust. So it's a very powerful medium.
It is. And people actually feel they kind of know you after reading your chapter. In fact, I had someone just reach out this week saying that they read a chapter in one of the books that I've got a chapter in, and they wanted to, have a call with me around media. So, it does lead to leads. And, I've had people many years later, even after I've been in a compilation book, contact me on LinkedIn, for example, and say, I saw that chapter. It was really inspiring. And so you just never know where it's going to go and who's going to read it. And, we all have a book in us, don't we? We all have a book in us, and a lot of people get stuck with this, with book writing, and they think it's going to take them ages to do, right? And that's probably one of the biggest things that stops people. So can you talk a bit about that, Andrew? How can you do a book quickly?
You can do a book very, very quickly. So we actually teach people how to create the content of a book in less than half a day. And so we'll talk about that in some detail. But yeah, look, you've touched on a lot of good points there. And we've helped not only businesses, but we've helped people who were hobbyists and have created a business. So we've got a woman who was teaching people learn how to paint, and she's been able to make a 7-figure business out of this, okay? But it all comes back from the fact, when you're talking about doing a book correctly, Aldwyn, you would do it correctly. You would speak in your voice. I think the biggest problem is too many people think you have to be an academic. You need to be like a PhD graduate from some university or college to be able to write a book. And so they try and write in that style, whereas you would have written in a very natural style. Your voice, your personality would have come through. And as I said, that's what people connect with. So if you're going to do a book correctly, you're going to do it in your voice. And the easiest way to do that and to create the content quickly is to simply work out who is your target market, who is your book aimed at. Once you know that, what action do you want them to take? After they've read your book and you've built this bond and connection, are you just going to drive them to your website? Are you going to sell them into a course? Are you going to sell them into another book? Are you going to have a one-on-one meeting with them on Zoom or on the phone? What is it that you want to do? Because that will be how your book finishes up. When you know how your book finishes up, you must have an idea of how you want to start the book. So you've now got the introduction and conclusion basically in your mind. Now all you need to do is work out the steps between the beginning and the end. What's a logical progression between those points? And just pick up some pages of A4 blank paper and write at the top of that, what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, and give them a name. And that is now your chapter titles. You've actually laid out the titles for your chapter of your book. It's just a logical step from intro to end. Now all I want you to do is list down the bullet points under each of those chapter headings, and then pick up your smartphone, hit record, and just start talking to it. Just use your voice, use the natural way you talk, and read out that chapter heading, then start talking to each of those bullet points. Now, the magic figure here is you want to do under 150 pages book. Anything more than a 150-page book, fewer people buy them and fewer people will finish reading them, and you need them to read your book. So 150 pages works out at around 30,000 words. Now, given the normal rate of speech, which is probably a bit slower than I'm speaking now, about 180 words per minute, the average person can speak 30,000 words in 2 hours and 47 minutes. So quite literally, you are finishing the content for your book in under 3 hours. And then all you need to do is get that transcribed. Now, I use otter.ai, which is a fantastic real-time transcription service. But if you want, you could actually upload it and have someone do that for you. And you can do that through any of the freelancer sites, guru.com, upworks.com, fiverr.com, freelancer.com, and you've now got the content of your book complete. And we've had authors do it. My first book was done exactly that way. I used to spend a lot of time in Sydney, which you'd know, with a lot of traffic lights. And so I'd actually just pick up a dictaphone, showing my age now before mobile phones. I'd pick up a dictaphone and just do exactly that method I told you into a dictaphone. I uploaded the file, someone transcribed it for me, and I just sent it off to the publisher. Ian Marsh, who you know quite well, He did his book in exactly that way. Same thing on a dictaphone. He just sat down one morning and in literally half a day had completed his entire book, sent it off to the publisher, and they did the rest. So it can be done very quickly and easily without you having to pick up a pen or even touch a keyboard.
This Otter tool is fantastic. For those who don't know, otter.ai, it is an absolute game changer. Now, I've used it for different things over time. However, being a journalist for over 20 years, I must say I was very used to typing things out. And I'm so proud of myself because last week I actually did a chapter for a book called An Enlightened Life with Christine Innes. It's going to be coming out soon. And it was a whole chapter mainly around my near-death almost drowning experience that happened in Coffs Harbour about 2 weeks ago. And I actually spoke it out. And before I knew it, I was there for 30 minutes speaking out. I actually had to edit the chapter back, but I actually spoke it out on Otter. And I'm so proud of myself for actually just taking that on board, even though I've been so set and so used to typing for so long as a journalist. And I thought that really that's the way that is best for me to compile my thoughts, etc. However, really, if you just give it a go and get on Otter, it's actually a lot easier than you may think. And yes, there will be some editing afterwards, but the main thing is just to get started. 50% of anything we do is just get started. And in fact, I was at a conference in Sydney last week, and Keith Abraham was speaking, an amazing professional speaker who's been around for 25 years as a professional speaker. And he was saying, if you're procrastinating around anything, then don't think about finishing that thing. Just start it, right? Because whenever we think, I need to finish this or I need to finish that or whatever, we can get stuck sometimes. But if you think, I'm just going to start it and not worry about the end line, I think that's just absolute gold. Don't overcomplicate things for yourself.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And it really is. It can be that simple to do it. And those who've gone on to do it have, we're talking about Ian Marsh's case. He knew exactly what he wanted that book to do for him. So it's written for a particular audience and it's written to get them to take a particular action. And that book that was completed in less than half a day that he never typed or picked up a pen and wrote, that book has generated him $600,000. So, why wouldn't you? If you knew that's the end result, why wouldn't you get started? And then, as you say, if you've started, you will eventually finish. Where I think a lot of people, the biggest problems we come across is people think, one, they don't have an interesting story or they're not interesting. I'm telling you right now, if you have been to school, if you've graduated from school and gone on and done something in your life, you have a story, and you have a story that some people will be interested in, right? So never, ever hold yourself back. We've just had one author, I was only just talking to him today, and he's completed his book, and he said it wasn't until he completed the book. At no stage did he feel worthy. He did not think that he was capable of writing a book. He didn't have anything to say. Then, as he said, his working life has gone on for 30 years. He's got 30 years of experience that he's probably devalued because, hey, it's just him. It's just life. This is what happens. And all of us feel that way. All of us tend to not give ourselves enough credit. And so now that he's completed the book, he's looking back on it, he's going, wow, I've got 30 years experience that I've now laid out in a book for other people to learn from. It's amazing what I've actually done. And I really should have done this book sooner. And so if I had to get one message out to people there, all of you really should have started a book sooner.
What's interesting about... Did you want to go first,
Aldwyn? I was going to say, it's never too late. Back to you, Ken.
Wow. Okay. What's interesting is, so there's a couple things that are definitely things like I'm definitely agreeing with here. So one of the things, especially recently, that I've found very, very useful, whether it's creating content for a Facebook post, a long form Facebook post, or whatever, is dictation. I love using dictation nowadays. And the way I use it is very simple. I open up a Microsoft Word document and it's got a tool in there, a dictation tool, and you can click it and then you can just speak what's on your mind. So oftentimes when I want to create like an outline post, I'm actually finding nowadays it's actually easier for me to keep track of my thought patterns by speaking it out and dictating it out and having that translated into a text rather than typing. Now, I don't mind typing, but a lot of times when I'm typing, by the time I get halfway through what I want to type, the second and third points that I wanted to bring across are kind of starting to get cloudy.
Yeah.
but not so much with dictation. If I am dictating it, like, I find that my thoughts flow a lot more. If I make a mistake, it's not a big deal because I can go in and edit that out. And actually, interesting enough, how I created my first book, my mentor who worked with me when I first launched my business, which is Mastery Weight Loss, and he was working real hard with me to get everything in line. So my first masterclass, all this other stuff. And then he's just like, now you need to come out with your first book, your first ebook. And so you have that as like a free offer to offer people and different things like that. And I turned around and I told him at the time, I said, you want me to do all this other stuff, and then on top of that, you want me to write a book? I don't have time to write a book. Like, what the heck is that? It's like, I don't have time for that. I barely have enough time with the deep research I do for my own podcast show. Now you want me to write a book? And so then he gave me an incredible idea. So I already had a couple deep dive episodes out there on my podcast. And one of them was called The Real Truth Behind the Obesity Epidemic. He basically told me, he's like, you can take that episode, you can upload it to a website called Temi, TEMI.com, and it will translate it into text for you. It's about a 45 minute episode that I had recorded there. And so that's exactly what I did. So my first ebook, it's about 80 to 95. It's around like 85, 90% done. I just haven't done the cover for it. I haven't finished it with, okay, what's the call of action that I want them to do? I haven't finished that part of it. So I need to go in and take care of that. But it is essentially written and done. And as I went through and I did the edits, I actually added more to some parts and typed in more, which then that's kind of where you get the aspect of the book was better than the movie, because the book is actually going to be better than that podcast episode because it's got a little bit more in certain areas than what I said in the podcast episode. So that's one of the ways, and it's probably not going to be the last one I write, because I've got a few episodes coming out of my podcast that I would love to then turn into another book. It's maybe a smaller book, I don't know, but now that I know like the little tricks on, it's like, it's not that hard. You don't have to sit there and type it all out. The dictation tools are they're an absolute phenomenal way to get your content out there in a book and have it done like this.
I couldn't agree more. Once you start typing, one, no one can type as quick as they talk, and secondly, you've got a filtering process in place. So you're typing slowly, you're overthinking, because instead of just talking and getting the thought out there, you're thinking through the thought as you're typing, and then you normally will go and edit yourself. You go, oh no, that's spelt wrong, or and then you've lost the thought. Whereas as you say, you're quite correct. If once you start talking and just let it flow, more comes out than is normally necessary, and you can go back and edit that later or create additional content from it. And the fact that you've done it from your podcast is brilliant, because the whole point of having a book is to gain attention and build that trust and credibility, but you want to be able to sell something off the back end of it as well. You never make money just from the sale of the book. It's all from your back end, or what we call the game behind the game. We show people how to develop a business off the back of their book. If you've got the podcast, that's brilliant, because as you say, you've created all this content now with very little work, but it's interesting content because you did a podcast on it. You can still direct people to that, so people can get that audio as well as the written word. But as you say, you've added more to the written word, and you can interview more people and be able and easily create more books the same way, or additional chapters to books, or additional giveaways for the people who buy the book. So yeah, you've done an amazing job there. That's great.
Thank you.
Yes, I love that, how you can repurpose it. So I've popped the link in there for temi.com. I was just having a look at that there. It looks a little bit like rev.com, where it does speech to text transcription, and you upload a audio or video file. You can try it out for free, and after that it's 25 cents a minute, whereas rev.com I have used before, and that was about $1 something a minute. So really otter.ai is $1.50, right? $1.50 now, right? It was $1 when I used it way back. Whereas otter.ai is free for a certain amount. I think you get quite a bit free for that, and then there's an upgrade from there if you want more content.
Yeah, I found Temi to be actually really cheap. Like that was one of my objections I threw back to my mentor. I'm like, well, how much is this going to cost me? And 25 cents. Yeah, I think I got the whole book done, transcribed for like under $13. Everybody's got $13. Come on, 13 bucks. That's not bad, and
Amazing.
yeah,
that's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Ken, you touched on ebooks there. Andrew, can you talk a bit about the difference between ebooks and physical books and why people should be doing physical books?
Yeah, sure. So, look, ebooks certainly have their place, and you and I both know some people out here who've done exceptionally well out of ebooks. There can be a lot of money if you know what you're doing with ebooks, but the biggest problems we have is a couple of problems. The first one is you've got to remember when the internet all started, which wasn't that long ago, and people started to work this stuff out, people were writing, or they were grabbing as much free, cheap content as they could, putting it together, and they're making anywhere between a 3 and a 10-page document, converting that into a PDF and calling that an ebook and putting it out there. So ebooks, by their very nature, were sort of cheap and nasty initially, right? What we're talking about is if you can produce a quality book and have that converted to an ebook, well, that's something different altogether. And we're seeing a lot of that out there. But let's make sure everyone understands the statistics. America is slightly different, but only very slightly different. In Australia, 88% of all book sales are still physical books, right? 88%. People want to hold a book in their hand and read it as opposed to more screen time, as opposed to having to, I've been looking at a screen since I woke up in the morning. I'm looking at a screen at work. It's my downtime. I don't want to look at an ebook on Kindle or the computer. I'm happy to read a physical book. So that leaves about 12 to 13% is ebooks and audiobooks. That's all combined in that last little bit. So some of that is those cheapy, crappy ebooks that I'm talking about, and some of it's the quality sort of ebooks. But an ebook, think about it this way. An ebook will get your information out there, and if they're marketed correctly, and certainly from the States, I see some phenomenal marketing and phenomenal sales on ebooks. But and again, they understand the game behind the game. They've really got all their maths and metrics sorted out behind it, because the cost per lead just to get someone to buy your ebook is far more than you can sell the ebook for. So they've got extra offers that they add to that to make it work for them. Hey, hats off to them, and it's usually to drive to another product. If it's simply just an ebook for the sake of ebook, or you're trying to gain your credibility or authority, I ask you, how do you do that with an ebook? And I want you to think of your nighttime or daytime host TV shows, The Circle or Jimmy Fallon or Letterman. I know he's not still going, either's Oprah. But you think about those sort of people. When you went on their show, did they ever look down the camera and say, and here's Aldwyn Altuney, the author of this ebook? No, it never happened, right? They would say, here's Ken Kleinberg, and he's the author of, and they would physically hold the book up to the camera, or they'd have the physical book sitting on the counter, and that was how they established your credibility and authority. And here's the bit people need to understand. Regardless, you might have all the information you need right now. Until you put that in a book, no one's going to understand you're the expert. And it almost sounds silly or even counterintuitive, but you put that information into a book which gets published, you're no smarter than you were before you published a book, but now the media and the general public and everyone else sees you as an authority. For whatever reason, at a subconscious level, that doesn't work with an ebook. I think people just perceive that anyone can produce an ebook, and so unless it's a physical book, because we've always held authors in high esteem, okay? You've got to remember, we've got hundreds of years of published books behind us around the world. And like Ken said, he initially thought it would take a long time to write a book. Most of us have this impression you're going to be like Hemingway and lock yourself away in a cabin for 6 months at a time with no distractions other than a bottle of bourbon to finish off your memoirs. Or even Ian Fleming, when he was writing Bond books, he used to go down to the Caribbean and shut himself away for months at a time. So people think it takes you a long time to write a book. People think you have to be an expert to write a book. And so people perceive authors as experts, as very credible people. That is people who have a physical printed book. You just don't get that same credibility with an ebook. It's not to say they don't have their place, but they just don't carry the same weight.
I think that's a very good point there. And so as a lead magnet, it could be okay. However, I must say I have gone to some websites where they actually say we will send you a physical copy of the book if you opt into our email list. And that definitely wows people and is a great way to really build a fantastic relationship right from the get-go, because it is going above and beyond. And if you think about the cost of acquisition of a new client, really to send a book might cost $20-$30 or something like that, to send it around the world. I mean, postage now, of course, has gone up a lot. However, it really does wow people, and particularly if you say you'll autograph the book for them as well. People love that. If you're doing speaking gigs, I must say just about every time I do a speaking gig, I'm selling books because people want to take a bit of you home, and this is a thing. A lot of people have boxes and boxes of books in their garage. So how can they avoid that from happening, Andrew?
Yeah, look, I wasn't even aware of that one, because that's certainly not a problem any of our authors have, but a lot of people approach me, and this is a really common problem. So a lot of people go down the self-publishing route. So let me quickly talk about the different types. You've got traditional publishing, which is what most people know. It's been around for centuries. It's very good at what it is, but the limitations are quite severe. A traditional publisher can only handle so many manuscripts. So they have far higher rejection rate than you can imagine. In fact, as much as 90% of manuscripts that get sent to them get rejected. They just physically can't deal with them, or they can't see a way to monetize it. They want a return on their investment. So there's a lot of problems with traditional publishing. It can take 18 months to 2 years to get your manuscript into the market. Now, we've actually got an author who's approached us. She's on her third book through a traditional publisher, and that's what she said. It doesn't work for her because it's taking up to 2 years to get to market, by which stage the content of the book is already out of date. So that's not working for her. What most people don't understand too, when you go through a traditional publisher, they think that they will take care of all the marketing for you. No, the marketing is still up to you to do, okay? Most people think you just finish the manuscript, send it to a traditional publisher, and everything's done. It's not quite the case. So because of the problems around traditional publishing and how few people have been able to go down that route, or route, as the Americans would say, we've gone through self-publishing. And let's face it, the way technology is improved these days through Officeworks or Kinko's or whoever you're going to use, you can produce a pretty high-quality book these days self-published. And there's a lot more money to be made for that. It's a lot more immediate. You have complete control over it, whereas traditional publishing, you don't. They decide how your cover's going to look. They decide how it's going to be typeset. They decide on the price of the book. You get to do all of that as a self-publisher, but in Australia, at least, there's huge limitations in trying to get that distributed. If you're trying to get into a bookstore, which you should do, that's where the real authority and credibility comes from. Even if it's only just a small part of your sales, you still want to be on bookshelves because that's what attracts the media, and that's what's going to get you the free PR and the free attention and really establish your credibility and authority. But you can't do that as a self-published author in Australia. It's very, very difficult. And distributors don't want to touch you. Bookstores don't want to touch you because otherwise they're going to be dealing with tens of thousands of authors. They'd rather just deal with certain distributors or certain publishers. So that's where entrepreneurial publishing came along, because we literally take the best of traditional publishing, the best of self-publishing, do away with all of the negatives, and allow you to get the book you need the way it needs to be done with our marketing expertise to help sell it. And we have the distribution behind it. We can distribute to well over 50,000 outlets internationally. So that's a big part of it. So to get back to your question, what we find is a lot of self-publishers go out. To make the price point work, you need to order lots of books. We're talking 500 or 1,000 books is really a good price break point. And so people get stuck with all these books in their garage because they find that they're not getting noticed. They haven't done the right thing, and they can't then sell these books. We've never had that problem because through proper marketing, see, we are marketers first who got into the publishing game to be able to create books the way we wanted. And if you look at Dr. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, exactly the same thing. That's exactly what they did. They were marketers first and foremost, knew what they wanted to do. The traditional publishing model and self-publishing model didn't work for them, so they created publishing companies to do their own book. And that's effectively what we've done. And so we teach people effective ways to market, so they've already pre-sold those books, at least 1,000 books at a time, sometimes 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. The most we've ever pre-sold was 21,500 books. So before the book is even printed, we've already pre-sold those books through one of the techniques you've spoke about. We do get our authors to pre-sell books by saying to them, look, you can get it. If you want to take, this is a limited production run on the first run. If you were to pay for postage and handling now, we will send you the book for free when it comes out. And that's a great way to get rid of it, as you say.
I love that. And what does it take to be a bestseller nowadays?
Yeah, good question. Now, the American market is probably the most interesting, so we'll talk about that. I think it's as few as 8,000 books in America, which really in a country like that is not many books at all. Having said that, it's not really acknowledged as such because you have all these different lists, all these different best-selling lists, like the Times best-selling list, or all these people come up with their own list to market their own brand. And believe it or not, you actually have to pay money to get onto some of those lists. So you look at someone like Russell Brunson, who actually sold 20,000 books in 1 week, which by any definition anywhere in the world is a best-selling book, yet he can't make many of the lists in America, which makes it just seems a strange environment. But by the same token, look, don't quote me on the figure, but I think if you were to go through to approach the Times New York best-selling list, I think you've got to pay them something like $20,000 up front, plus be able to sell a certain number of books. So it's a marketing tool. It's the way it's done. In places like Australia, it's 5,000 books need to be sold for you to become a bestseller. And there's a lot to be said about that, because that's what really establishes your credibility and authority. You are a genuine best-selling author, not an Amazon best-selling author. Let's be very clear. Amazon just has their own title to help try and sell more books, and it's not a fixed figure. It varies from day to day. There's a classic publisher in America who literally wrote a 1-page book. And when I say wrote, he took a photo of his foot. He didn't even write anything. And he put that up and he put it in 2 different categories, and he sold 3 copies of it in 5 minutes, and Amazon gave him the best-selling stamp as a result. So now, admittedly, once everything refreshes later that day or the next day, he will no longer have that best-selling logo. But if he took a screenshot of that, he can use that to claim for the rest of his life that he's a best-selling author. So unfortunately, Amazon have become their own worst enemy, and they've devalued the meaning of best-selling author from an Amazon point of view. In real world, if you can show a physical book and you can show it to the media and show that you're a genuine bona fide best-selling author, that carries a lot of weight, and that's where you get that media PR and interest. So I've already forgot your question because I've been talking too long.
No, that was great. What it takes? No, you've answered it well.
Yeah, so to be a best-selling author. So once you can do that, we need to put this in perspective. 98% of all books published sell less than 200 copies.
Wow.
Think about that. Only 200 copies, right? Whereas you go through the entrepreneurial publisher like us, 98% of our books have all well done over 200. In fact, we have the highest number of best-selling authors as a percentage of authors published. So we know the secret behind it. We know what's required, and we'll talk about some of that as we go through. But yeah, the majority of people do no marketing around their book. They've done nothing to generate any interest, and yeah, under 200 copies. So to be able to do 5,000 copies in this country, that really is a big deal.
Amazing. And you do have a fantastic event coming up, Publish for Profit, for those in Brisbane, a 3-day event, March 24 to 26. The link is in the chat for you to come along to that. That's going to be phenomenal. I know so much amazing content in there. Can you let us know what you're going to be covering in that 3-day workshop, please? Yep.
Just a small correction first. It's not just for people in Brisbane. We only run these events a couple of times a year. We used to attract people from all around the world. A little thing called COVID sort of put a stop to that. But even our last event last year, we still had people coming in from New Zealand, Thailand, and people travelling interstate. So, no, you don't just have to be in Brisbane. I know airline travel around Australia is a bit of an issue at the moment, but please make the time to come and have a look. And we are going to cover everything. We cover the full insider secrets. I'm going to show you everything about the publishing world, behind the scenes, all secrets exposed. Over 3 days, we cover it in great detail. And we work with people in it. It's an active workshop. I don't just talk for 3 days straight. It's not a multi-speaker pitch fest. I don't have all these people on stage flogging their wares. It's us working with you for a determined outcome. So quite often we get a lot of people turning up who don't actually have a business idea. They know that they want to do something, they just haven't worked out what. We will find out what their passion is, and we develop a book around passion. Like we had a woman turn up, Joe Munro. What's your passion? Well, her passion was shopping. How unusual, a woman who likes shopping. I've never heard of this before. But can you turn that passion into a book? Of course you can. So she wrote The Savvy Shopaholic, and that has become an international best-selling book that has got her over 200 appearances on television, that has got her own jewelry line online. It has got her a huge following, and she gets all sorts of goods and products for free to talk about on social media. So we can turn any passion or hobby into a business. So we help you work with that. We help you discover the game behind the game. We work on the book itself and teach you how to monetize the book, like not just selling the book, but what are the back-end products? How can we easily develop other products or services for you to sell? And what's the end goal? What are we really going to help you achieve financially? So we cover all of that. But more importantly, we're going to cover the science of the book, because too many people just do a book cover that they like and think that they're done. We actually help you design a book cover that will sell. And we actually have a team that can do all that artwork for you. But you've only got 7 seconds. When someone looks at a book cover, you've got 7 seconds to attract their attention and keep their attention long enough that they turn the book over. And then you've got about 14 seconds to sell. So we actually lay out the back of a book cover like a sales letter. There's a real science to the way we do it. So you can tell a global publishing group book compared to a normal book. If you pick them up and read the back covers, you'll see that ours are specifically significantly different. And that is why we can sell a lot more books. And so we're going to show people how to do that. We're going to show people how to create each of the chapters within their book. And we're going to show them how to create that content. So when they leave, they're going to have the title and subtitle actually tested. Like we will go around the room and check it within the room, and we'll check it against their target market. You'll have that all done and dusted. You'll have the layout of the back of your book done, which is the hardest part. And you'll have the idea for the content created, which then, as we say, you've just got to go home and spend 3 or 4 hours talking about it. And you've literally finished everything that's needed for a book. And that will all be done over 3 days.
Amazing. Wow. Ken, have you got questions for Andrew or anyone in our live audience right now? For those joining us, thank you so much. Justin's joined us here from the US. He says he'll be back soon. Vignesh on YouTube says, I love you. Thank you so much, Vignesh. That's lovely. I'm sending love back to you too. The world needs more love right now. Stuart Canavan, always great content from Aldwyn and her guests. Thank you so much, Stuart. If you have any questions for Andrew, please pop them in the chat and we can pitch them live to him. Ken, have you got some questions?
You know, the thing is like, for example, with my own book. So yes, I will have an ebook version of it, because yeah, it is going to be used for like free content and kind of like marketing. It's like, you know, hey, sign up for my masterclass, get my free ebook, you know, hey, join my Facebook group, get my free ebook, stuff like that. But then what I do want to do is I do want to go through Amazon, and actually they've got a process you can go through and actually get the physical book in your hand. I want to, you know, be able to have like 10 or 12 copies on hand, and not only just for myself, but, you know, for those special people, you know, maybe somebody that comes in and buys one of my coaching packages, one-on-one coaching packages, they now get a physical copy. So like, stuff like that is something that I want to do. And from what I do understand, doing that through Amazon is fairly easy and fairly cheap as well. I mean, again, I'm not looking to really to make a profit off the book. The book is kind of more of an extra thing, like, hey, check this out. This is what I'm talking about the obesity epidemic. Here's the truth behind it. Now, you know, are you interested in supercharging your weight loss journey? I mean, whatever that looks like, you know,
Yep.
you know, book an appointment with me, you know, let's see if I can help you. Let's see where you're at and stuff like that. And then get them into my program. I want to use it as something like that. And I mean, the book itself, like I know what I've got in the book. It's powerful, but it does take a very unique approach to the way I speak to things. So I think there's 5 or 6 chapters in it. And it's basically, you know, how did we get here? Why is this such a problem, and why does it continue to be a problem? Why are there highly addictive ingredients being put into our foods? Why are we not seeing big companies promote real whole foods and real nutritious foods? And why is there such a big agenda in the direction of processed food, boxed food, sugar-filled foods, fried foods, and breaded foods, etc.? And then obviously I end it with, where does this leave us? Which basically I'm going to call that, let's just like rename that the chapter of hope. So, I mean, it takes a very unique look at the real truth behind the obesity epidemic, which is basically, it's because of the big tech companies. It's because of, a lot of the messages out there that they're propaganda pushes towards certain types of big oil companies, vegetable oil companies, and all of that, so I kind of, in a very unique way, uncover all that and give the argument, look, yes, we have our own choices. We eat that food, but the thing of it is it's also being programmed and pushed in our face every single day. Almost every billboard that's out there, you look at the billboard, and what are they almost always advertising? Fries, burger, and processed food. Very rarely do you see an advertisement out there on a big billboard or something like that for whole food, for something that's actually nutritious. You very rarely hear. And so in that book, that's part of my angle. I'm asking the question, why, and why is that okay? So anyhow, that's the unique twist that book has. And so what I want to do is get it up eventually on Amazon and get a few physical copies. I mean, obviously I don't want to have 500. I live in this little small apartment. I don't have room for 500 copies of a book. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm taking that. What are some tips that you could possibly give me as I'm in the process of finishing off the last touches of that book?
All right. So one, there's a lot of great stuff in there, Ken. So if I can deconstruct some of that and then come back and ask me that question at the end, because definitely get the physical book. So what you're talking about there is print on demand. It's become very popular now because it is an affordable way to do it. Price per book is still very expensive, don't get me wrong, but you've got the right idea. You're looking at getting just dozens of these things. It does carry a lot of weight. Having that as opposed to just an ebook, even though they're the same thing technically, that is going to really build your authority and credibility, okay, in the minds of others. And more so when you're doing something like this, to physically hold that book up to the camera is going to make even though you're only directing them to buy an ebook, that will count for so much. As Aldwyn's already indicated to you, mate, signing that book is going to get you, it'll open doors you weren't even aware of could be opened. You'll be quite surprised the power of signing your own book and giving it away. We've got a guy here in Australia who literally fronts up. He never does a check-in online when he's flying. He will always go to the counter and he will get his ticket from the counter, and then he will hand a signed copy of his book over, and he says, could you please give this to the captain as my appreciation for conducting a safe flight today? And literally more than half the times he gets a free upgrade as a result of just giving a signed book. So what you're talking about is very, very powerful. And yeah, you should definitely be looking at doing it. When you're talking about having a small unit and 500 copies, if you had a distributor, mate, that's the whole point. If you organised to go through a distributor, they would already be pre-sold. So they literally wouldn't even have to turn up on your doorstep. So that's a big thing there. Yeah, look, we're very wary of printing on demand in Australia. Where print on demand was really strong is we can produce books in any country. We could have them printed in America. We have them printed in Australia. We could have them printed in Europe. But if we then, let's say I print my books here in Australia, if I then have to send a copy to Norway, I get one order from Norway, the cost of sending the book is more than the book is worth, okay? So what would happen in that case is through our distributor, it's all done online. And so when someone orders the book from Norway, it will get printed on demand. A one-off copy could get printed in Norway and sent to them, and it works out a much cheaper option. So that's how print on demand comes about. But what you're talking about could work very, very well for you. So, sorry, what was the end question? What were the tips on?
Like, as I'm finishing my book here, I mean, I've still got the cover to work on, which I'm like clueless. The title, obviously, I've already said what the title is going to be. And then getting all the footnotes, and because I've got quotes in the book, and so putting all those in line, and then finishing it off with I guess you're going to call it like a call to action or something like that. Yep. These are some of the details that I still need to work out and be able to complete to finally go, okay, now it's a finished product. Now I can move forward. Let's talk to Amazon now, blah, 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 blah. So those are the last finishing touches. What are tips that you can give me for finally finishing it? Because it's been sitting there for a while, just because I don't know what to do with the cover, and I don't know what to do with like footnotes or how to organize the quotes. Like these are like the little tedious details that I'm going, okay, what?
Yeah, and very good. So without being flippant, the simple reason we run a 3-day event to cover all this, to be able to cover this on a 1 or 1.5 hour webinar just is impossible. So that's why it takes us 3 days to get through all this content, because we cover that in great detail. I think you've done a lot of things right. I think something for footnotes, etc., that can get very difficult for a number of reasons. One, it normally, depending on how you lay it out, it can really slow the reader down. Readers can get bogged down in that sort of thing. It's something we normally reserve for academic text. So as long as you're attributing the quote to that person, so if you say this quote and then list the name of the person underneath it, that's usually enough. If you want to put footnotes at the back, you can. But if you've got footnotes where you've just got little points next to every paragraph, and at the bottom of that page you're addressing that becomes very tiresome and tedious. So
right, I kind of had the idea of putting it at the back of the book, and the quotes they're from different articles and websites. So I would pretty much list the website, the person that wrote it, and then have the link in the back of the book. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that works really well. And so one other point I wanted to talk about that you touched on, which is brilliant, you're coming at it from a slightly different angle, right? And you're coming at it from the Ken Kleinberg angle. And this is really important for everybody watching to understand, because people go, well, I'm really good at business and I want to be able to help other people in business, but smarter people than me have written business books, so I can't write a business book. Well, if you own a business book, I guarantee you don't just own one, you own multiple. If you own a weight loss book, you don't just own one, you own many of them, okay? The whole point is different people say things in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. So you've done the right thing. You've found your own angle, but more than that, you've got your own voice. So people are going to connect with not just what you're saying, but the way you're saying it. Mm-hmm. So Aldwyn could go and write a book on exactly the same topic, and I could go and write a book on exactly the same topic, but we'll all have a slightly different angle and a different way of saying the same thing, and we're all going to attract a different audience as a result. So anyone watching this thinking, well, they're not worthy or they're not capable or they're not experienced enough, you're going to do it in your own voice. And I think that was good, Ken, that you said you found a slightly different angle, because in your case, that's going to create a little bit of controversy too, which makes getting media a hell of a lot easier, as Aldwyn would attest to. And you'll be able to get a lot more attraction because of that. So yes, your cover is going to be very important. That front cover design, it's really going to have to capture people's attention and identify what that book is about. A lot of people don't do that with a front cover. They do something that appeals to them but doesn't mean anything to anyone else or doesn't capture people's attention. But when you turn onto the back of that book, you definitely want another attention-grabbing headline. So whatever the title of your book is, whatever the next best title you could come up with, that should be at the top of the back of the book. Then you want a positioning statement, just one tight paragraph explaining why Ken is the expert and why this book is the book on the subject, why you need to read this book now. And then you want 7 bullet points, no more, no less. You want 7 bullet points that will address exactly why someone should be reading your book. And you want them to be emotional touch points if you can, why not having access to Whole Foods is killing an entire generation or something to that extent. 7 bullet points, so that as I'm reading each one of those, I'm thinking, well, I'd buy the book just for that.
I already know one of the points would be, it might be very well will be at the top of the list, but one of the points I can think of right off the top of my head to put back there is like, the health, wellness, and food industry is literally designed to keep you sick, stuck, and overweight, because that's how they make money. Yeah. How to escape it.
Well, brilliant. And so can you see people would buy it just for that one point, yet alone any others that you may list. So that's how you do it, mate. That's a powerful stuff. And then the actual layout inside is not so important. You know, people have already made that connection. I have to have this book. They're going to buy it. They're going to read it, and they're going to get what they want. A lot of people really get hung up on, have I used the correct English? Have I said this the correct way? Even when you're going to get someone to edit your work, don't let them take out your voice. Make sure that it's still a conversational style, because that's what people are going to connect with. And I think your book, your topic is going to be very, very powerful.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a hot one. And you can hear the passion in Ken's voice when he talks about this. He just loves it. And of course, Ken personally has lost, is it 22 kilos, 60? What's the stats there?
I don't know what it translates to out there, but it's I've lost 62.5 pounds.
There we go. Which I think
and kept it off for over 5 years now.
Yes. That's his story, right? 22 kilos, kept it off. So he's a great one to be talking about this from experience. And you touched on too, Ken, that, you know, the book is really there. A lot of people do give their book for free because it's really about the game behind the game. And that is what Global Publishing Group are brilliant at, is the game behind the game. So can you share a bit about that, please, Andrew?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a multifaceted approach. So we understand that you don't make money from the book per se, all right? So you can sell the book for $20 or $30, and if you sold 1 million of them, well, people would say, well, then you've made lots of money. You have, but you've made nothing in comparison to what you could have made from back-end sales and from the game behind the game. So the classic example is, we've got a guy out here called Conrad Bobolak. Now, when he attended our 3-day event, he didn't have a business. In fact, he didn't even have a business idea. So he was working for the National Australia Bank. He came along because he had the entrepreneurial spark. He wanted to do something in business. He didn't know what. He's turned up, and we've explained the game behind the game in great detail, which I haven't got time to do here. But he understood that straight away. And so he actually, when I say he had no business, I mean, he didn't even have a business name, let alone premises, staff, and everything else. He understood straight away how he could make a business that would give him his ideal lifestyle, let him work where he wants, when he wants, and pay him $1 million a year. Now, remember, this guy had never made anything like that in his life. So he then crafted the book the way we teach, around the game behind the game, and he now literally makes $1 million a year from. And interestingly, his business that he created off the back of that book, he's never spent $1 advertising it. He spends money to advertise his book because that's the ultimate lead generator, and that's what brings people into his funnel. And through that, his YouTube channel and his website, he produces a company that is now allowing him, what pays him $1 million a year. So it's really, really powerful. And interestingly enough, he's actually turning up. He's going to be a guest speaker on Saturday. That's only just been worked out today. Oh. So he will be on stage talking about his exact experience. But yeah, we work on how to very quickly and easily produce back-end products that will make a lot of money. And we also have a technique, which I'm definitely not going to talk about here. You'll have to be in the room. But we have a technique where we generate usually between $40,000 and $60,000 for each author before the book is even printed. Now think about that. Yeah, there's no one's heard of that before, right? But we, again, and Aldwyn, you know quite a few of the people who've done it. We've got a lot of authors that do this exact technique and generate money. Now, most authors will never see tens of thousands of dollars come from their book full stop, yet alone before it's even printed. That's what we do. So that's the first step. The second step is building the back-end products or services, so you've got something to sell off the back of your book. And the classic example is if you look at someone like Tony Robbins. He produces a book and he sells lots of them, understood. But people want more from authors. This is the whole thing people need to understand. And Ken, you're definitely going to be in this case. And you need to be aware of this now. People are going to be contacting you after you've read your book going, fascinating, my eyes are opened. What else? What else have you got for me? Now, you're going to be able to drive them to podcasts, et cetera, but you want to have something that you can monetize, something you can sell them to. Because in Tony's case, he upsells them to a course. So you've read my book. Now you can buy into a course for between $250 and $1,000. And some of those have read the course. Sorry, you got something?
And I do have an online course as well.
Brilliant.
Now, it does need to be updated, mind you. I was just going back through it the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I'm like looking at all the stuff on there, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, I have so much more knowledge in this now. This needs to be updated. Because I do a lot of deep research. And then when I uncover stuff that I want to talk about, it usually goes on my podcast. But then lately, I haven't done the development work to update that course. There's a lot more that could go in it, but I do have an online course that they can get, or they can purchase one-on-one coaching from me, which I actually prefer, because then I get the chance to really work with them and instill them why I'm passionate about what I do, which is to help them become unstuck out of that system, and how to now have the tools to move forward in their own life, not just to lose the weight, but then to actually keep it off, and keep it off for good, and have that be sustainable. Yep. So basically, I just, my passion, literally, if I were to put it in a few words, is to literally deprogram everyone from what they've been taught in the industry and reprogram them back to more ancestral ways of eating that actually support health, nutrition, and all of that, and help people lose weight. So where should I direct them? Should I direct them to my online course? Should I direct them to one-on-one coaching? Which one would be more beneficial?
So you definitely want to start with the course. And so that's why I'm using the Tony Robbins model, because he just steps people up gradually. So you go from a $30 book up to a $250 to $1,000 course. And then from the course, you might go to one of his events, which might be $1,000 to $3,000. And people who like that will step up to a 2 or 3 day course, which costs more. Then they step up to a 4 or 5 day boot camp, which costs, 10 to 15,000. And now, obviously, you're losing people at each step. Not everyone who buys your book is going to step in, but those who do are spending a lot more money with you. And then when you get into Tony's one-on-one coaching, you're paying $85,000 a year there. So obviously, you don't need many people paying you that much money to be doing well out of it. So it's always nice to have some sort of online course running underneath. Get people involved, get people trusting you more and wanting more from you, and then have something else to step them up to. So if you could do something in between the online course and the one-on-one coaching, another mid-step there would be good. But yeah, ultimately you want to move as many people into the one-on-one coaching as you can handle. That's the whole point. Yeah. And if you start getting too many people approaching you for that, then you need to increase your prices. And that's and people will pay it because you're the expert. This is the whole thing. Yeah. Because you've got a physical book, people perceive you as the authority, the expert. We all know that authorities and experts get paid more money. We've all done it ourselves. So you've got a good model there, but I would look at an intermediate step between your online classes and your one-on-one coaching and step people up through that process.
That's a really, really good point. Very helpful. Thank you.
Good questions. And I have been to this 3-day event before, and it is absolutely brilliant. And for those who maybe are not able to travel there for whatever reason, which would be totally worth making it happen for yourself. I mean, it's only a few weeks away. It will be a mind-blowing 3 days. And I'd say it will save a lot of people a lot of money and mistakes that they would make if they don't have this information. However, for those who really can't make it for whatever reason, is there going to be a way that they can maybe purchase a recording of it, or you're not live streaming at the event? No.
So this is the biggest problem, because we are working, we're giving a lot of information, but then we're actually breaking people down into groups and getting them to work in groups. And then we are working, our team comes through and works one-on-one with people. We haven't found a way that we can do that, or an effective way to get that information out there. Also, a lot of what we do is obviously our intellectual property, so we're protecting that quite vehemently. But because we have other authors contributing, showing what success they've had, all of their stuff is copyrighted too, and we don't have permission to use their stuff. So that's been the biggest problem with trying to get recordings out there. I understand everyone wants events to go live, but if you go to our website through that link you've just provided, you'll see even on there, we've got people coming from America and the difference it's made in their lives. Was it worth them traveling from America? Certainly was. And you're talking about how much time it saves. We've always claimed that these 3 days will save you 3 to 5 years of your life. I've never met an author who'd agreed with that. Every author I've dealt with said, no, it's more like 7 to 10 years. And in Conrad's case, he says it's a book that would never have been written if he hadn't done this 3-day event. So is it worth the 3 days to work out how to make $1 million a year? I'm going to say yes, very confidently yes. So definitely worth
So
travelling
get
to.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really it's so affordable. I mean, for just $97 Australian, which is probably about $70 US, people, they get morning, afternoon tea. Is it a 130-page workbook? Is that right?
Yep. Go through that in
Yeah.
great detail. And it's not just morning and afternoon tea, it's all the food laid on. It's very well catered for. We make sure you're taken care of. It's a fantastic venue where we're holding it, and it's all designed to be interactive, and it's accelerated learning. How many of you have been to these courses before and you walk out and a week later you've literally forgotten 90% of everything you learned? This is specifically designed through accelerated learning. The way we move and interact and teach is such that you will retain up to 90% of everything you learn over this weekend. And you've got the workbook to refer back to at every stage to make up for that 10% you don't learn. So again, another reason why we really can't do it online.
There's nothing quite like being in the room with these kind of events as well. And plus the networking will be amazing as well.
The networking is phenomenal. That's the one thing that catches me out. Every time we ask people for a debrief, what did they think of the event? What could we improve on? The one thing that comes back time and time again is it was just as important being out of the room as it was in the room. The connections people make, the networking that goes on during those morning and afternoon teas and lunch breaks, that alone has transformed people's lives. Yeah, it's been phenomenal.
I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'll be there myself. So I look forward to seeing anyone who will make the time to save the time, make the time just 3 days to save yourself potentially up to 10 years of making mistakes in this area. And it can be very costly mistakes for people that do have boxes and boxes of books in their garage that if you don't learn these skills that you will potentially be like that, right? So we don't want that for you. We want you to find out how you can totally profit from book publishing, and so many ways you can do it. Now, I have a technical question around the 150 pages. You said it's 150 pages ideally for a book. So when you look at types and fonts, like what ideal type font would you say, and what size font to actually make up 100? So you talked about number of words, but how would you lay that out?
That's a great question, and I have a typesetter to do all of that. So I don't know, because a lot of people are going to include diagrams, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why the typesetter will work it all out. So the size of the font will vary. There would be an ideal size. Now, I can't remember whichever one that doesn't have the taily bit. You got sans and you got sans serif. Whichever one doesn't have the little curly, that's the easier one to read. But the actual size of the font, that's all to be determined by a typesetter. So this is the problem with self-publishers. Self-publishers will go and do something that looks good to them. It won't necessarily look good from an industry point of view. And we have it quite a lot. I actually get quite a lot of self-publishers coming up to me and going, look, here's my book. I can't get into bookstores. What can you do? And I go, well, unfortunately, I can't do anything because you haven't done this or this correctly. And they go, look, it's exactly the same as this other book. And I say, well, to you, it may appear that way, but to everyone in the industry, just by looking at the back cover and by cracking open to any page, we can tell instantly when it's a self-published book. It really is that obvious to us. So that makes it very hard to get sales and distribution for. So it's a great question you've asked, Aldwyn. I don't actually have a direct answer for it. That's why typesetting is a profession in and of itself. They actually go to a lot of trouble to make that work and keep it within that 150 pages. Obviously, if you've done a lot more than 30,000 words, or if you have a lot of diagrams, it's going to blow out, and that may affect your readership or at least the people who could finish it. The point I should make about graphs or images or anything like that, at each stage, the book should be driving people to your website. So if you're going to put a picture or a graph or something in there, you're going to put a little image in there. But tell people if they go to your website and put in their details, their name and email, they'll be able to see a better quality picture, a larger picture, a picture in colour, or they'll be able to see a video of you explaining some topic which may be very hard to explain in writing in a book. So that's what's going to create a list of hot buys for you, people who want more of your stuff. And Ken, in your case, that's particularly important because you're going to keep creating more content down the back. You want to be able to reach these people. These are people who already opted in and told you they're interested. They're already people who trust you because they've read your book. So these are the easiest people to sell to down the track. So you really want to be driving people to your website at every stage.
And
Yes.
interesting enough, I just had somebody completely rebrand my website and everything. Did just a phenomenal job with the work that he did on my website. I mean, I now go to my own website, and it's just like my eye is just like drawn to it, all the way down to the fonts, everything. So yeah, no, I'm very proud to advertise my website out there because it's just phenomenal.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I have a book in the wings too called Good News Sells. So I'm combating this whole idea of bad news sells and how to gain over $1 million worth of free positive publicity. So that's a book that I've had in the wings in the background, and I plan to get finished this year, and I plan to launch it in Bali. So actually having some dates set and making some time also to get this done is so, so crucial, because we're just always going to otherwise just get busy and busy. We'll say we'll do it later, procrastinate, deliberate, etc. So making the time, having some firm time frames is really crucial. Would you agree with that, Andrew?
100%. And so one of the biggest problem is we offer people support. So we give them like a 12-month program for those who want to buy into that. And so what we find is they effectively do nothing for 10 months, and then they finish it off in the last 2 months because that's when they have to be finished by. So I'd actually be better off just making it a 3-month program, and knowing everyone would get everything done in that time. So we haven't really spoke about, if you were to sit down and type a book, how long would it take? Well, we've actually got a woman, Karen Scott, who wrote a book about the earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand. Now, she actually completed she typed it. She actually typed it on the keyboard. She finished the entire manuscript in 2 weeks. Okay, wow. So that's everything, all the legal ease at the front, everything at the back of the book, all of the content in between, the cover design front and back, all of that was completed in just 12 weeks. 2 weeks, 14 days. So wow. That's what. Now, the interesting thing was she was in a house that crumbled when the earthquake hit, right? So she actually had neck damage. So she was actually supporting her neck. She still had a broken neck when she was typing. So she wrote for 2 weeks with a headache. It wasn't until she'd finished the manuscript she went and saw the doctor, and they re-x-rayed and go, oh, we missed a couple of crushed vertebrae here. We better go have a look at those. So if she can write a book in 2 weeks with a crushed vertebrae, then everyone here watching, you should easily be able to talk it in under 2 weeks and get it done. Yeah, but setting yourself a deadline is very good. That's a great way to go.
Definitely.
Yes,
now,
brilliant.
I just pulled open the Word document with my book. And so here's the thing. Well, it's also my very, very, very first book. So, I mean, there's not that many pages to it. It's with the content page and the introduction page and then the chapters in here. The whole book so far is 44 pages. So what would you say about that?
So in your case, that should be fairly easy to fix. Have you got another podcast along the same lines? I'd also transcribe another podcast and put that in there. There's no such thing as too short a book. If you can say everything you need to, and I can't remember all the examples, but, you look at the Marxist Manifesto, I think that was only 30 pages, and look how many, hundreds of millions of people that's affected in its time. So don't be too concerned about it being too short. One of the books we published was on how to help with back pain, like back pain after surgery. Now, that's only an 80-page book, and yet that's been an incredible seller. Why? Well, if you're in pain, all you want is the answers. You don't want to have to read through 200 pages to find the answers. So right. An 80-page book works really well. In your case, because it's an ebook, it's probably not as big an issue, Ken, but if you're going to get that printed, then it's going to look more like a pamphlet than a book. So I would find either someone else who will back up what you're saying and provide it, an alternative point of view, but proving your point of view and put that in there, or use another one of your podcasts and have that transcribed to add to what you've got.
Well, and the other thing too is I was actually thinking about doing something similar to that, maybe expounding on some things, because at the time when I produced it, like I said, that was like almost 2 years ago, and I've learned so much since then. There's so much deep research I've dove into since then. And so I do think that there's definitely more I could add to it, and further chapters that I can add to it as well via audio. So I probably will go through and expand it quite a bit and get that out there. So if I were to expand it to 80 pages, would that be better? Like double the size?
80 to 100, I reckon, is a good figure. So when you got to look, when I started this 15 years ago, 250 pages was the magic number. But as we're all aware, people's attention spans are getting less and less all the time. So within 5 years, it dropped to 200 pages. Now it's dropped to 150 pages. You'll find a lot of the Americans are now doing the how-to books. They're doing less than 150 pages. They're working on the 110 to 130 sort of, and I reckon that's a good number. So, look, 80 works. If you can get it up to 80, Ken, I think you're definitely in the ballpark.
I think that's doable. I mean, I definitely think I can record something, maybe record an update on that particular episode, and then from that have it transcribed, and then, kind of piece that in. But yeah, there's a lot of different ideas that are coming to my mind. That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
The other thing to consider, which we haven't discussed, is the forward for a book. Now, a book definitely does not need a forward, but what we teach is how to do it strategically. So we actually have a system in place that we talk about at the event. In this system, we show people how you can get anyone, any person anywhere in the world to write the forward for your book. Now, don't pick a celebrity just for the sake of celebrity. If that was the case, everyone would be getting Oprah Winfrey to write the forward for their book. And that doesn't help anyone. That is certainly no help to her, but it's no help to you as an author or to your readers. So some of the classic examples, Tracy Stranger, which is one of our very, very first authors to ever go through, she actually got the forward for her book about relieving stress naturally. She got the forward written by the Dalai Lama himself.
Interesting.
Now, when people read that, the credibility associated with the Dalai Lama, some of that transfers through to you, because people have gone, well, if he wrote the forward for this book, then she must be a pretty special person, even though she's never written a book before, anyone knows who she is. But people now reading her with new reverence because the forward had been written by him. The same, we told another woman how to actually reach Sir Richard Branson. And so she followed our technique and sent something to Richard Branson, and he took his time to respond. Now, this is important because her book was on helping children with dyslexia. So she'd actually made content. She'd actually made an entire course around that, but she couldn't get the course out there. No one knew about her. So what did I say? You've got to be able to create attention and build trust and credibility. What's the number one way to do that? Have a book. So we got her to write a book. And then she said, well, I want Richard Branson to write the forward because Richard Branson is actually dyslexic, and yet he's been incredibly successful because of it. So she followed our system. She got onto Richard Branson. She sent something to him that, he could use or modify. And he actually said to her, this is pretty important. He took 6 weeks to get back to her, but he got back to her with his own written forward, and it's incredibly powerful. So again, people reading her book and now going, well, Richard Branson wrote the forward to this, so she must be a pretty important person. It has a whole new reverence as you read through the rest of that book. And, of course, that has built her business now. She is selling courses around the world to help teachers and parents who have children with dyslexia. And as you can imagine, that's done a massive amount to increase her business. But more importantly, it's gone on to help all these poor kids with dyslexia. And that wouldn't have happened if she didn't have the forward. Well, one, it wouldn't have happened if she didn't have the book. But two, I think having the forward written by someone like that. So if you can think strategically, if you could think of someone, a significant who could maybe write the first 1, 2, 3 pages of your book, talking about you and your thoughts or the book itself, again, that just helps give added credibility and authority to you.
And it doesn't have to be somebody that's like well-known or popular.
It doesn't have to be. No, I'm just saying that does help with the credibility as people read through it. But no, I've done it strategically. My first book was on marketing and retail sales, helping retail business owners. So I got the head of the Australian Retail Association to write the forward for that. And then that way you've now got another distribution outlet. So no, if you could get the CEO of Whole Foods or someone like that to write the forward for you, then maybe you could have your physical books distributed at the front counter of Whole Foods or something like that. yeah, that's what I'm saying about thinking strategically. That's what a lot of people don't do. And that's why we run this 3-day event, to get people thinking differently and to start thinking like that. And we would actually brainstorm, in your case, ideas like that. I'm just not right up on the American brands, but Whole Foods is the first one that comes to mind. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. Now, we've been chatting for over an hour, so it's time to start wrapping up the show. Are there any final words you want to mention, Andrew, before we start wrapping up? And we'll share some links as well.
Yeah, look, as you say, statistically, it depends where you are in the world, but anywhere between 82 and 87% of the Western population have a book in them. Or anyone, that's just not adults, that's children. So, look, don't go to your grave with that unfinished thought. It really can be quite simple to do. I'd love to see you at our event. If you come to our event, not only will I see you there, more likely I will see you on the best-selling list as well. But I'm not saying you have to do that. Follow the advice we've given you here. You've got a lot of great advice for free. Go and do it. Go and tell your story, because that's important. And if you are in business, trust me, it's publish or profit. If you want to stand out from your competition, you need to have a book. You need to follow the steps we've spoke about here, and you need to build that authority and credibility, that trust that comes from that, and drive people to your online site from that book. But yeah, publish or perish. I can't say it enough. It's everybody should get a book out of them.
Love it. And there's the link there. Publish for Profit 3-day event in Brisbane, coming up March 24 to 26. Totally worth traveling for. For $97, you get an amazing 3-day event, workbook, morning, afternoon tea. And can we do the special offer here with the gold pack, Andrew?
It has expired, but yes, for your list, if for the people who've tuned in, that's a good point. So if they do want to pay the $97, they will automatically let them know they've come from this webinar. They will automatically upgrade to the gold ticket, $297. You still get all of the same things, but you're also entitled to $1,500 worth of bonuses and another freebie, which you'll find out about when you sign up for that. So if you sign up for the $97 silver package, we'll automatically upgrade you to the $297 gold package. So last time though, Aldwyn, the last time.
Last time. Okay. So mention you were on the Total Truth Show, mention that Ken and Aldwyn referred you, and you can come along there. So we've popped that link in. You'll see that on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. So if you're tuning in later on the audio, then go back and check that, or just go to globalpublishinggroup.com.au and have a look there, although we have the direct link in Facebook and YouTube, etc. So hop on there. Thank you so much, Andrew. That's very generous. It's going to be amazing. 3 days. Can't wait. It will be absolutely brilliant. Thank you to everyone who has joined us live. Now, for people to connect with you, Ken, I've got some links here. Would you like to run through? We've got your Facebook group here.
Yes, absolutely. So you got my Facebook group in there. You're awesome. Yes. You do. So one of the best ways you can just connect with me and immediately get some really good content stuff is through my Facebook group. And you can find that at www.tinyurl.com/Ken's group. Very simple for you to remember, and just go in there, fill out the short little questionnaire. And I have a 7-part mindset video series in that group that's exclusive to that group. Did it just for that group. And you can go in there. There's also other content in there. And it's a growing group with lots of members. So that. And then if you'd like to book an appointment with me, my calendar link is right here she's got it right here up on the screen. And that's at www.calendly.com/masterycoachken. Love to get on a Zoom call with you. Love to see where you're at, how I can help you, and how I can get you unstuck. One promise I can make is that when you leave from my coaching sessions, and you're done with the package you got with me, one promise I absolutely can make is that you will be way more educated than you ever were before, and you will have lots of tools in your toolbox that will help you make sustainable changes that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, love it, Ken. Beautiful. And for those who want to connect with me, all my links are right here. Linktree/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn, ALDWYN. And I've popped in the Good News Cells there as well. The book that I plan to have out this year. It may have some tweaks and changes to it. However, this is a place where you can keep updated on the progress of that book there. And that's facebook.com/Good News Cells. Just as you say it, Good News Cells. And of course, check out the 3-day event with Andrew coming up. Global Publishing Group is going to be amazing. And you do have a guest speaker as well coming, don't you, Andrew, as well?
Yes, yeah, we've got the amazing Sharon Jerd. She's going to be talking about a whole lot of things, selling from stage and coaching and basically business development as well. So she's going to be a great help there. Plus, she's done 2 books through Global Publishing Group, so I'll get her to talk about the process. And as I say, her first book made $40,000 profit. That's after all expenses came out, before she even had the book printed. So she'll be just reinforcing a lot of the techniques that we teach. And talk about the mindset, because nobody thinks that they're worthy of this, or people think, well, it happens for them, but it couldn't possibly happen for me. Well, she was one of them. She sat in the audience and she watched other authors say these things, and she said, yeah, I can see how the system works, and it's obviously worked for all of them, but it won't work for me. And yet she's become incredibly successful as a result of it. She runs 2 businesses. And as I say, she made $40,000 profit before one book was even printed. So she'll be a great asset to have on stage, and people are going to learn a lot from her for sure.
Can I speak just 1 second here about mindset? So I find it very interesting that you mentioned mindset, Andrew, because one thing that I want to mention here, for those of you who are sitting in your chair and you're still listening to that little voice in the back of your head saying, I just can't see myself with a book. How in the world am I going to have time to do this? What in the world am I going to talk about? All the what ifs and all this other stuff. What if cars ran on spit? All right, come on. Let me just, I had to throw that out there. Let me just say this. That is all part of a mindset called the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset, if I can put it in a nutshell, basically looks at everything. The person basically looks at everything in their life as, if they don't have the ability now, they don't already have the gift, the possibility of getting that gift is just not there. Those people never actually think about the fact that a skill or a gift can be learned. They never think about the journey of becoming. They never think about the journey of learning, getting wiser, getting better, getting stronger. That's all part of the growth mindset. And so what I want to encourage you guys out there listening to this who are just kind of like battling inside your mind, get out of your mind, adapt into the growth mindset. And remember, that journey is something you get to learn from. That journey is something you get to grow from. Can you learn how to write a book? Yes, you can learn. It doesn't matter if you've never written a book before. It doesn't matter if you don't have the skills. It really doesn't. That's all part of the growth mindset. Just because you don't have a skill does not mean you can't do it. You can learn to do it. You can grow into doing it. That's the difference between those 2 mindsets. One is fixed, and they don't think about the journey of becoming and learning. It either is or isn't, and they spend their entire life just trying to prove themselves to people. The other one embraces the journey of growth. So go out there and do it.
Love that,
Well
Ken.
done.
That is great.
Yeah, that is good. Well done.
And also, I would say, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. That's another one of my favorite sayings. And everything is hard until it becomes easy, right? So no one was born brilliant at anything. And so just notice yourself, if you're comparing yourself with others and thinking, oh, their story's better than mine, or, who am I to do this, or whatever. If you know 10% more than someone else on a topic, you can teach it. And you have your own unique experience that you bring to it, which no one else does. So I do encourage you to to just get out there and get started, right? Don't worry about finishing it, just get started, and then you'll soon find you'll get the momentum will build up and you'll finish it before you know it, and you could become a best-selling author as well. And Global Publishing Group are definitely a great company to work with, very well established, and they've helped so many people transform their lives through book publishing, and that could be you next. So look forward to seeing you on the other side. And we like to wrap up here with a favorite quote or a favorite motto that you live by. Ken, would you like to share yours?
Yes, I definitely would. So speaking to the growth mindset, perfect quote for this: treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. That is by Donald J. Trump.
Yes, love it. And Andrew, do you have a favorite quote or saying that you live by?
Well, with that, while we're on mindset, it was actually Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I love that one. I love that. And one of my favorites is Be the Change You Wish to See in the World by Gandhi. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Total Truth Show. If you like what you've seen today, then please share the love, comment, let us know what you got out of this show. Let us know some of your gold nuggets, and please share the love. Connect with us on Facebook on the Total Truth Show. You can like our page. We've popped that in the chat there for you. Facebook.com/Total Truth Show. And you can see some of our other amazing episodes as well. And also we do upload to BitChute and Rumble. And we also go on Anchor and go out to all the podcast platforms with this show as well. So you can tune in by audio or video. We would love to stay connected with you and go out and produce that book. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Andrew, special guest. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.